Let me go ahead and give you the proper introduction that you're due to, my brother. So, ladies and gentlemen, today on the 5th episode of Masters of Intellectual Thinking podcast, we have the great brother Permiss. He's the co-director of the groundbreaking audio drama series called The Pride of Kyro. You doing today, my brother?
Thank you, man. I'm doing well, brother. Everything is good. Can't complain, man. Thank you for having me, man, to talk about the show. Love what you're doing, man. I love the direction of the show. Love the name. So thank you, my brother.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate you, my brother. We just trying to do something different over here. You know, we're trying to talk about real topics, you know, because everything is derived from my mentality, you know, and that's, you know, so our thinking has to be intellectual to survive in this landscape of the world, my brother. So once again, great brother, thank you for joining us. I'm about to just give you a couple questions. I know that you're a busy man, so this is going to be a smooth, easy ride, my brother. So my first question for you is, the Pride of Kyro, it delves deeply into family dynamics and personal ambition. So how do you believe the narrative speaks to the broader social understanding of power and responsibility?
Great question, man. Great question. Well, I think the first thing is understanding that the writer, shouts out to Ejana Kamal. She wanted to create a story where let's take out money, let's take out the hardships of what, you know, African American families face on a daily basis. How to, working, trying to make ends meet, poverty, all of those things. I gotta, do some illegal things by any means to make a dollar. And so she wanted to take that out of it and replace it with, okay, now they have everything that they need. They have money, they have wealth, they have everything in excess. But now what? And the picture and the narrative that she wanted to create was that money doesn't solve everything. Families are still broken even from within.
Right.
Love has to win all the time. And so I think the story really speaks to people, especially in our culture, that think that, okay, well, once I live in a state of abundance, or I live, where money, I won't have to worry about money, my life is great. When in actuality, that's false. And so the story really goes into suspense, drama, details. The children have their own stories. So it's really interesting.
Oh wow, that's deep, my brother, because we all come from poverty-stricken environments, man. The have-nots, my brother. So that's a great answer, my brother. Thank you for that. So my second question for you is, with the podcast of Pride of Kyro being both immersive and inclusive, how do you balance the complexity of perspectives without compromising the depth of each character?
I think the main thing for it is each of the characters needed to have their own story.
Right.
Each of the characters really needed to have their own identity. Yes, Cairo is like, he's the father, so he really rules with an iron fist, rightfully so. But the children are just as interesting, even down to the mom is just as interesting as well. And then once you have that family dynamic, now you have some of the other characters that complement the family as well. So yeah, like I think discovering their own identity was a main important piece that EG really wanted to bring out of each character. So that way it gives the audience a chance to fall in love with, well, I like Kingston better. Nah, I like Asia better. Nah,
Right.
I like Nephi better. Nah, I love Farrah better. So
Right.
it's just not solely centered, focused just on Cairo, but it's those other characters as well.
Yeah, that's great, brother. I heard some of the sound audio from the podcast. So how does sound design play a crucial role in the Pride of Kyro? Could you share insights into how the soundscapes were developed to transport listeners into the world of Kyro and his family?
Yeah, man, great question. So a couple of things with that. Number one, we had to understand and we had to realize that because this production was so unique, is no visuals involved. So
Right,
everything these days now, you got they look at it, the visuals is always going to manipulate your imagination because the characters are always there. And so in the beginning process, we thought like, okay, if we're going to do this on the audio side, it has to be delivered in a way where the audience immediately forgets that this is a audio drama, right?
right,
Immediately they're wrapped and hooked into the story. And so one of the first things we had to identify is, okay, we have to find a great house to record in. And we can't go to little Pookie and Ray Ray studio to
right.
do this. Right. So um I remember shopping for some studios here in Atlanta. Um and Patchwork was really the house that really spoke to me because they understood the project. That's the first. Um, the second thing, once we found where we was going to record at, now the next thing is, okay, who can we have to bring it to life from a sound design perspective? Who can really understand not only the project, but who can really get deep down into the story and envision how the characters speak and how each scene is? Because I think any sound engineer has to be a creative within their own right mind.
Yes, indeed.
Um,
Yes.
Shout out to Ed 8 from a Shiesty Major. He is just incredible. I had a conversation with him through Pop Buchanan. And when we all was on the phone and I was pitching the idea to him and I was pitching the story, he immediately got excited. He was like, let's do it, send it over to me. But what I really appreciated about him was that even before we even got the post-production, he was always checking in, like, hey, how's it going? How's the story? How's everything? And then I gave him the script even before we started, which in essence gave him a head start to
Mm.
really get into the story. So by the time he got the files and everything to do it, he was light years ahead to really bring it to life.
Right, right,
And so I think to wrap up your question, I think any sound designer in studio, for that matter, they have to be believe in the story, one, believe in the project, two, and then not only that, but they have to really take it, dive it, hone in on it, and not look at it as just another transaction,
right.
but look at it like, I'm gonna immerse myself into this project to bring it to life. And I think with those two components, that's what happened.
Awesome, awesome, great brother for sure. So how does so the plot revolves around the theme of earnings, like one place in the world, right? Like we're all trying to find our place in the world. So how does this reflect on the current societal views on inheritance, marriage, and privilege in family?
Oh man, it touches on everything. You know, number one, let's just talk about the money behind it. Um, here it is, Kyro Carter. He's the heir to an oil company, right?
Right.
So already, if we're looking at it from a family dynamic, I if I'm his child, right?
Mm.
I already see success already growing up.
Right.
So quite frankly, I'm gonna want to be like my dad, right? How can I get that? How can I get a piece of the pie of what you're doing?
Mm.
And so what I love about it is all of the kids are trying to grab his attention, right?
Right.
They want his success or they want a piece of what he has. but he's not going to give it to him. So they gotta, they gotta work hard for it. And then so here it is, the younger sibling, Karan, he's like, well, man, my dad is not going to give it to me. I'm going to go out and do what I have to do to get it by any means, which he don't really have to. But again, it's his ambition to, to do that. So he's not lazy. He's not just going to sit around and do anything. And I think from the trajectory of where the writer was coming from, that's all along with some of the other things. But I think one of the key points that she was really trying to bring home is that we as African Americans, right, we can have a piece of the American pie. We really can.
Yeah.
And we don't really have to go outside of our home, to necessarily look for it. But again, I'm gonna drive the point home is money doesn't fix everything. Not
right.
Clearly you're gonna see that.
Right. And I like how you touched on, money doesn't solve everything. And especially when it comes to, our people, like our culture, we basically, like a lot of people don't understand the concept of, life insurance policies, generational wealth. And as you saying, the younger son, there's always that one child that want to test the parent, always want to go against the grain. And that's the child right there, where as a parent, you'd be like, okay, I've taught you the life lesson. If you want to touch that oven and burn your hand, that's on you.
Right.
So yeah, I like that, my brother, for sure. The plot revolves around the theme of, I just answered the question. This series promises suspense and drama. How do you approach crafting cliffhangers and twists that not only surprise but also provoke intellectual debate among your audience?
Oh man, it's crazy. Right before we got on this live, I had a meeting with my team.
Right.
That's the main thing, because the chatter is already happening, right?
Right.
Through phone calls and everything, and so it's always going to create debates. It's always going to create questionable content.
Mm-hmm.
Is always going to create that. And again, I really appreciate what EG did. Is she wanted to create those necessary cliffhangers, so that way, not only are you coming back for more, but it's always going to, those questions are always going to resonate in your head by default. Our main thing is we wanted to create community, because I think when you can create community and you could create those discussions, and because for us, we always love to hear the reactions from our fans. We always want to hear the reactions of what that person was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so building community around content that's always debatable is always awesome. It's because it's stuff that happens to the everyday person. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, one of the characters, Kyro's wife, Asia, quite naturally, as you'll start to see in the story, some things is like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. But who as a wife hasn't been in that particular situation with a domineering man,
Right.
a man that's just so self-centered as Kyro, who, who hasn't? So it's always going to bring questionable conversations. It's always going to bring questionable debates. It's fun, you know what I mean? But it's always thought-provoking. That's really going to make you leave away from, even from the Pride of Kyro, and see how does that mirror in your everyday life.
Yeah. That's so true, brother. So could you elaborate on the research and inspiration behind Kyro's character and the so the theme of pride that seems to be a driving force in this narrative?
Again, that comes from the imagination of EG. I could hear her now saying that she's a daydreamer. In coming up with these captivating, awesome stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think her main thing in building each of the characters was She just didn't want it to be driven upon, you know, bad social economic issues, you know, poverty, all of those things, right? But how can I be creative and create a character
Mm-hmm.
has questionable things about himself as well? How can I create an alpha male that's, you know what I mean, in this world that's African American, but has his pride of children behind him that, you know, look to him as a role model, but you know he has some shaky ways about him as well.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yes, sir.
you know, and I really think that she really crafted his character really, really, really good. Because as a man, I really can. I've came across a couple of Kyros in my lifetime,
Right.
so she did an awesome job in creating him.
Brother, sure. So, your podcast, it has a compelling storyline. Like when my great brother JOD, you know, first brought it to my attention, I was like, wow, I've never seen a podcast storyline like that truly like blew me away, my brother. So y'all do have something different that ain't nobody doing right now. So just further elaborate on, you know, with the podcast having a great storyline, how will you keep listeners on the edge of their seats? What techniques do you use to ensure each episode maintains the level of engagement? Because in this world, people have short-term attention spans and they don't sit down and listen and hear things at a long pace or whatever. So how do you how do you plan to keep people's focus on your podcast, sir?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to look within, and you have to look within your team and
Right.
get yourself, okay, how is the cast delivering the message that the writer wants to deliver to the world? And so the first thing is I have to say our cast is awesome because they all delivered the characters that EG wrote to a T. And so when you look at that and you say, yeah, uh, uh, Latoya, she brought out London real good. You know, Civ Jones, she brought out Neffy real good. Taisha, she brought out Farrah real good. So when you have that, then because of the talents of the voiceover artists, now quite naturally their characters is infectious in a good way,
Right.
right? And so it's always going to keep them interested, and it's going to keep them wanting to come back. I think as the writer from with EG, her thing is how can I make continue to make the episodes interesting, and each at the end of each episode is always going to be a cliffhanger for you to come back even more, such as the case for episode 5. You know, there was in that episode alone there was so many twists and turns and cliffhangers in that. It's like trying to drink water out of a fire hydrant. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this. Oh
Right.
my gosh, I didn't know that. So yeah, you're gonna want to come back even more, you know, to listen more. So I think if you have great writing, and then if you got a really good cast to deliver the message to your audience, and your audience by default is gonna be like, man, how can I tap in for more? How can I do that? How can I get this? And we're just blessed and thankful to God that we have those components to deliver that and to feel real good, you know, about the story, and really tap into our audience.
That's awesome, my brother. Awesome. So what can we plan? I mean, what can we prepare to see from the Pride of Cairo? Are y'all like trying to bring this to like a full length action series or something? Like what can we plan within the future? And then also just give us like some shout outs like where we can find you at on all like, you know, the social media platforms, and just if you have any shout outs in regards to the whole team that put this great monumental podcast together.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I gotta give God all of his props. I gotta just definitely thank him
Amen.
for even in allowing us to see the project through. I remember I prayed, me and EG and some of the production team, we prayed on it together in its inception and just asked for God and light and favor. And he delivered on his promise 1,000%. Um, I, I definitely did, there's no limit where this can go. Of course, we would like to see it visually. We would like to see it on so many things and ways on how we can really repurpose it. So there's no limits, on it. We're just excited at the fact that we could deliver it in a way where it's easily digestible for fans and listeners to really get. Um, I, I definitely have to shout out again Ija Kamada, writer, who just it came from her mind, and she was able to give it out there to the world for us to do that. The cast, oh man, they're just incredible. And if I could just say this, it's nothing like when you're working around a bunch of creatives that
Mhm.
are easy to work with and fun to work with at the same time. And then what you could do is you could create memories, and you're creative yourself. So I already know, if you're in the studio together, it's like priceless moments. Those moments that will never die out, and good energy. So the whole cast by far, not only are they talented, but they believe in the project, and it's just awesome, awesome energy from every last one of them. So shouts out to them, and then shouts out to the production team on the back end. Fame Plan B, Pop Buchanan, Ed 8, those guys at Patchwork, Oz, Luther Banks. And then shout out to our clothing sponsor, my guy Jay Halim at House Washington. He was one of our very, very, very first sponsors. I called him and asked him, "Hey, I love your line. Always been a fan of your line. Is there any way that we could have our cast and some of your shirts?" And so he sent them. This is his Larry Boy collection right here.
Okay. That's nice, brother.
I know I got a big box at my door, right? And he's like, "Yo, this is for the cast. Whatever I can do, let me know." And then it's just awesome to have that. And of course, shout out to my man JOD. He's just incredible. One of
You,
the things
you.
I will never forget, this is one of the things that he said at the premiere. He said, "Yo, Hanif, man, I'm trying to do my best JOD voice. Here it go." He said, "Yo, Hanif, that premiere the story was so good." He said, "You got them listening, so they have no choice but to close their eyes and envision it." That comment right there spoke volumes. And he said that, JOD, you look him in his eyes, he's sincere with it,
Yes, sir.
right? And I
Yes,
like,
sir.
bro, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And just the response and everything thus far was incredible. It was awesome. So just as a team, and I know this, it's like, if you have a vision and it just requires you, it ain't big, man. But if you got a vision and it requires more than just your ten fingers and two hands, yeah, that you're gonna have to put a good team together. And I'm just so grateful to God that He allowed us to work with some dynamic people in this
Yes.
project.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's awesome, brother. So, so if people want to continue to get updates on like Pride of Kyro, like episodes, merchandise, where can they find you at, my brother, or the whole podcast? Like, where can they find
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we are on our mid-season finale. So episode 6 will be on April the 27th.
you? Okay.
So that's when the next episode will premiere. You could go just to the prideofkyro.com, www.theprideofkyro.com. There you will find everything from merch episodes. You could get to know who the cast is. You could see some of our media spots that we at. And if you don't want to go there, you're like, can I just go to iTunes? Of course, we on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Prime, Audible, the whole 9 yards. But our main base is the prideofkyro.com on IG, the whole 9 yards.
And that's great, my brother. Well, with this being the masters of with our podcast, like I always tell people, you're using this intellect as everything, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. So in regards to the Pride of Kyro, your whole cast, y'all's vision, this is an extremely remarkable thing that y'all doing. And I know here within the new future, it's going to get bigger and bigger. So great brother, I appreciate your time. Shout out to the great brother JOD for connecting us. And whenever I come to Atlanta, I most definitely want to do this again in person. And once again, this is the 5th episode, and it was great having you, brother. Thank you for answering these questions clearly for our listeners. And this video will appear on YouTube April the 4th, and this will be the 5th episode. So once again, it was a pleasure having you, my brother. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Opportunity. Thank you for the platform. I truly appreciate it. And again, I love what you're doing, man. I think if anybody that could sit down and have a real thought-provoking, intellectual conversation, is awesome. If we was talking for half an hour, it flew by real quick. And
right.
I know I'm having fun, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's what it's about. This is, like you just said, and my brother, you basically just said pretty much everything that my podcast stands for. So if it ain't intellectual, I don't know what it is, my brother, because at the end of the day, if I'm having like a one-on-one conversation with someone, it has to be thought-provoking. It has to be intellectual, because if not, then, like, what are we doing, right?
That's correct.
Once again, great brother, I appreciate your time. This was the 5th episode of Masters of Intellectual Thinking podcast, and we'll see y'all soon. God bless y'all. One love, and we out.
God bless you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.